Humphrey Bogart's real life was anything but idyllic, despite the glitz and fame of the movie industry and his iconic roles. Bogart's life was complicated and full of hardships, including tumultuous marriages, struggles with alcoholism, and conflicts with the studio system in Hollywood. Even if his well-known performances conveyed a sense of charm and tenacity, his journey demonstrated his will to forge the route. What difficulties did Bogart encounter whilst filming? How did he reconcile his struggles with his fame? Explore Humphrey Bogart's life and learn the little-known tale of a legendary figure in Hollywood who led a less than ideal life. The early years. Born into a wealthy New York family on December 25, 1899, Humphrey DeForest Bogart's early years appeared to be gilded. His mother, Maud Humphrey, was a well-known illustrator and suffragist, and his father, Belmont Bogart, was a renowned heart surgeon. Bogart had a privileged upbringing, but he was emotionally devoid. Young Humphrey was frequently left in the care of nannies due to his parents' hectic work schedules. His mother, whose artwork once portrayed him as the Bogart baby in commercials, was aloof and uncaring, hardly showing love. Instead, she held him to impossible expectations. In the meantime, his father, who struggled with substance abuse and financial mismanagement, offered little direction. Humphrey had a rebellious bent and a desire for independence because of his isolated and strict upbringing. This emotional separation from his family influenced his austere and independent attitude on television. Notably, summers spent at the family's lake property gave him a unique sense of comfort and sparked his lifelong love of sailing and the sea. The military stint. Bogart chose to enlist in the U.S. military. His wealth but constricting upbringing was significantly altered by his service in the Navy during World War I. Despite enrolling at Phillips Academy to enter Yale, he left school at 17 to serve in the war. Despite being ordinary, his naval service had a significant influence on him. Managing supplies was one of Bogart's routine responsibilities as a ship's quartermaster. He did, however, acquire a very straightforward manner during this period. There is conjecture about the cause of the scar on his upper lip, which is a distinguishing physical characteristic. According to some stories, it was a bar fight or a German prisoner's strike, while others say it was just an accident that happened when supplies were being transported. Whatever caused it, the scar added to his rustic charm. He also experienced the structure and camaraderie he had missed as a young man in the Navy. This event significantly influenced his subsequent on-screen depictions of disciplined, exhausted people. Struggling to find a path. After leaving the Navy, Bogart overcame the challenge of adjusting to civilian life. He returned to New York, but refused to follow his parents' wishes to become a lawyer or doctor. Instead, he experimented with strange occupations like driving trucks, running a theatrical company, and selling bonds. None of these professions, though, offered satisfaction. After a fortuitous meeting with William Brady, a theater producer and family acquaintance, Bogart became interested in performing. He started as a stage manager without any official training before moving into acting. Critics gave his early Broadway theatrical performances mediocre reviews, calling him unimpressive and wooden. But he learned flexibility and tenacity from these early setbacks. Although he continued to be a supporting character, he gained a professional reputation by the middle of the 1920s. It's interesting that Bogart frequently jokes about how his early career was more about getting the third guy from the left than significant roles, indicating his self-deprecating humor. A taste of stardom. It was his big break when Bogart was chosen to play a seasoned mobster named Duke Manty in the Broadway production of Petrified Forest in 1935. Initially intended for Edward G. Robinson, the part allowed Bogart to express his struggles and frustrations through a powerful and complex performance. Critics praised his performance and referred to him as a standout in an otherwise ensemble cast. Warner Brothers was impressed by Bogart's performance, but landing the movie role wasn't simple. Leslie Howard, his co-star, had to endorse it since he insisted that Bogart play the same part in the movie adaptation. Bogart stood out for his gritty authenticity as Duke Manty, representing the capacity to depict characters with nuanced morals. In addition to launching his Hollywood career, this discovery also signaled the start of his long-lasting friendship with Howard, whom Bogart attributed with igniting his interest in the film. Bogart was so appreciative that he named his daughter, Leslie, after Howard. The Warner Brothers struggle. Bogart experienced discontent and typecasting throughout his early Warner Brothers years. He was signed to a long-term contract and frequently played cliched villains in low-budget gangster movies. Bogart stayed in the background, earning the moniker the studio's utility player. He starred in dozens of films throughout the 1930s, but many of these roles did not fully exhibit his range as an actor, while peers like Edward G. Robinson and James Cagney rose to fame. Bogart's discontent increased, but he remained steadfast. He studied scripts, watched other actors on set, and honed his skills during these years. A fascinating story from this era demonstrates Bogart's witty humor. Irritated by an abysmal script, he said, "What's the line again?" Even though the 1930s was a professional slog, they set the stage for his future success by establishing his reputation for professionalism and unwavering work ethic. I don't want to destroy it by recalling it. The Maltese Falcon. When Bogart was chosen to play Sam Spade in John Huston's The Maltese Falcon in 1941, his career changed dramatically. The movie pioneered the film noir genre and was based on Dashiell Hammett's book. Bogart's portrayal of Spade was groundbreaking because it enthralled audiences with a blend of wit, cynicism, and moral ambiguity. The mocking parts he'd been assigned earlier in his career were a long cry from this. Despite studio reluctance, Huston pushed for Bogart's selection because he saw his unrealized potential. Bogart's status as a leading man was cemented by the film's unprecedented success, which received overwhelmingly positive reviews. Notably, Bogart's reserved delivery and expressive gaze in The Maltese Falcon introduced viewers to a more nuanced style of acting, evoking a depth of feeling uncommon in Hollywood at this time. The film's iconic status also signaled the start of Bogart and Huston's enduring relationship and professional partnership. Casablanca, the role of a lifetime. Bogart was first dubious about the movie's potential when he was cast as Rick Blaine in Casablanca, writing it off as just another picture. However, the part ended up becoming the turning point in his career. Bogart could display his entire range as an actor because Rick Blaine, a cynical nightclub owner, caught up in a love triangle during the war. His subtle performance struck a profound chord with fans by balancing sensitivity and cynicism. Part of the movie's famous lines, such as "Here's looking at you, kid," were improvised, which added to its timeless appeal. Bogart's marriage to Mayo Method was disintegrating, and his personal life was in disarray behind the scenes. He was always professional, though. It's interesting that Bogart first questioned his capacity to play a romantic lead due to his gritty demeanor. Still, Casablanca disproved this theory and made him a global celebrity. With Bogart at its core, the film's success not only won praise from critics, but also cemented its status as one of the best made. A troubled personal life. The drama of Humphrey Bogart's personal life matched that of his most famous movie roles. He had 4 marriages, the first 3 of which were characterized by emotional instability, fights, and infidelity. Helen Menken, his first wife, was an actress on Broadway. Although they were married for less than a year, Bogart's second marriage to actress Mary Phillips didn't last long either, as their relationship was damaged by Bogart's growing drinking and business disappointments. Known as the Battling Bogarts, his third marriage to Mayo Method was arguably the most turbulent, characterized by public arguments and reconciliations. Bogart and Method shared a poisonous dynamic as a result of their shared difficulties with alcohol. Lauren Bacall, his co-star in To Have and Have Not, provided him some redemption. Hollywood was enthralled by their romance, and Bogart's gritty appeal balancing Bacall's wit and grace. Their relationship was sincere and long-lasting, even though they were 25 years apart in age. Bogart's life was stabilized and made happier by Bacall, who turned his house into a haven from the hectic world of stardom, making their romance one of the most renowned on film. Battling alcoholism. Beyond his tough guy exterior, Humphrey Bogart was a fragile man struggling with inner demons. His use of alcohol as a coping strategy and in social situations was ubiquitous. His drinking contributed to his appeal off-screen, but it also served as fuel for a lot of his personal and professional disputes. His famed capacity for booze was frequently made fun of by friends, but many also noted the adverse effects drinking had on his relationships and health. Particularly impacted was Bogart's third marriage to Mayo Method, whose arguments were frequently made worse by excessive drinking. On set, Bogart remained unwaveringly professional despite these difficulties. It's interesting to note that several of his most well-known parts, such as Rick Blaine in Casablanca, had characters who drank to hide their misery, reflecting his troubles. He famously said, "I never drink before shooting because booze and bullets don't mix." Bogart's ability to produce unmatched performances despite his struggles is a monument to his tenacity, even if he never wholly recovered from his reliance. The final years. Bogart's health was starting to suffer by the early 1950s as a result of his years of drinking and smoking. He began to feel tired and his throat ached, but at first he brushed it off. His family and admirers were devastated when he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer in 1956. His condition deteriorated despite various therapies, including surgery, to remove his esophagus. Despite his sickness, Bogart maintained his usual stoicism by entertaining guests and spending time with his wife, Lauren Bacall, and their 2 kids. He threw parties at his house and frequently used humor to allay worries. In one particularly moving instance, Bogart joked, "If I need help, I'll ring Sinatra instead of the bell." Bogart died on January 14, 1957, at the age of 57. Frank Sinatra had given him a little bell to call for assistance. Hollywood's elite, including Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn, attended his funeral. A gold whistle bearing their saying, "If you need me, just whistle," was placed in Bacall's coffin. Bogart and John Huston. A unique and mutually beneficial partnership between John Huston and Humphrey Bogart resulted in some of Hollywood's best movies. The Maltese Falcon in 1941, which marked a sea change in Bogart's career, marked the beginning of their collaboration. Bogart's depth as an actor was acknowledged by Huston, who gave him parts that let him play nuanced, flawed characters. Both men were renowned for their love of mischief and adventurous nature, and their friendship went beyond the set. They frequently pulled practical jokes on the actors and crew while filming The Treasure of the Sierra Madre in Mexico, which brought some humor to the otherwise exhausting scenes. Bogart deviated from his typical roles in The African Queen, one of their most memorable collaborations, and won his first and only Oscar. Huston created characters who capitalized on Bogart's gritty appeal and inner fragility because of his unmatched grasp of his abilities. In addition to their business partnership, Huston was a devoted friend who helped Bogart fight cancer. Their collaboration is still regarded as a high point in film history. Cigarettes and fedora. Bogart's trademark ensemble, a trench coat, a hat, and a cigarette hanging from his lips, became synonymous with vintage Hollywood. The hard-boiled, mysterious, and morally complicated characters he depicted were represented in this mixture, which was more than just a stylistic decision. The constant cigarette represented his character's worldly fatigue, while the fedora, frequently angled precisely, gave an element of mystery. It's interesting to note that Bogart's need for cigarettes persisted off-screen as he smoked up to 2 packs daily, which exacerbated his esophageal cancer. His classic trench coat from Casablanca and the Maltese Falcon influenced decades of detective and noir film and fashion styles. Bogart's approach has been hailed as an inspiration by contemporary performers such as Harrison Ford and Robert De Niro. Bogart's unique look is an enduring aspect of his legacy, despite the health hazards that smoking brought to light. It personifies the cool, detached anti-hero character that never fails to enthrall viewers. The Lauren Bacall effect. When Humphrey Bogart was at a turning point in his life, Lauren Bacall came into his life. Bacall, who was only 19 then, matched Bogart's charm and wit, making their encounter on the set of To Have and Have Not electrifying. Bogart was still married to Mayo Method, but there was no denying his relationship with Bacall. They married in 1945 after their brief affair became a newspaper sensation. Bacall's young enthusiasm and hope counterbalanced Bogart's pessimism. Their reputation as Hollywood's golden pair was cemented when they collaborated on several movies such as Key Largo and The Big Sleep. Bacall gave Bogart the steadiness he had long desired at home by assisting him in juggling his demanding job and alcoholism. The pair loved reading and sailing, and they frequently used their yacht, Santana, to escape the turmoil of Hollywood. Despite several difficulties, their relationship was marked by intense devotion and respect for one another. One of Hollywood's most enduring love stories, Bacall's dedication to Bogart in his latter years, highlighted their deep connection. Bogart's defiance against studio control. Humphrey Bogart was one of the first well-known Hollywood celebrities to publicly question the studio system, which controlled almost every element of an actor's career. Bogart resented being typecast and excluded from creative decisions when studios effectively owned actors under restrictive contracts. In his well-known arguments with Warner Brothers management, he insisted on improved scripts and parts that considered his developing skills. Bogart took the audacious decision to co-found Santana Productions in 1948 because he was unhappy with the restrictions placed on him. He produced movies like Beat the Devil and In a Lonely Place through the organization to have more control over his work. Despite its financial difficulties, Santana Productions' founding was a significant turning point in Hollywood history that encouraged aspiring actors to rebel against studio domination. In addition to advancing his career, Bogart's disobedience changed the industry and set the stage for the studio system's eventual collapse. His perseverance demonstrated that creative integrity and financial success could coexist even in a strict sector. The Hollywood 10. The House Un-American Activities Committee, or HUAC, targeted alleged communist sympathizers in the entertainment sector, entangling Hollywood in the Red Scare of the late 1940s. While many celebrities remained silent, Bogart formed the Committee for the First Amendment with actors, directors, and authors. Since they believed that HUAC's methods violated free speech and creative expression, the group spoke out against them. To publicly support the Hollywood 10, a group of filmmakers who declined to testify, Bogart took part in a high-profile journey to Washington, D.C. But this advocacy quickly drew criticism, and conservative audiences and studios pressured Bogart to disassociate himself from the cause. This episode demonstrated Bogart's determination to stand up for his beliefs, even though he later denied his involvement, claiming that he did so to safeguard his career. His brief stint as a political activist gave his public character more nuance and demonstrated that he was more than just a Hollywood celebrity. The Noir King, defining a genre. Film noir, a subgenre that first appeared in the 1940s and revolutionized cinematic narrative, is closely associated with Humphrey Bogart. The hallmarks of the genre, such as moral ambiguity and hard-boiled manner and a sense of disillusionment with the world, were embodied by his characters in movies like The Big Sleep and In a Lonely Place. Post-war audiences that yearned for more intricate stories found resonance in Bogart's depictions of private investigators, anti-heroes, and imperfect heroes. His portrayal of Philip Marlowe in The Big Sleep, which combines incisive humor with a simmering tension, continues to be a noir acting masterpiece. Bogart's ability to show fragility beneath a strong exterior, which gave his characters a sense of realism and relatability, was one of his distinguishing characteristics. In addition to elevating the genre, his work in cinema noir defined it and established a standard many performers and filmmakers have since followed. Because of his enormous influence on noir, Bogart is frequently called the Noir King, a moniker highlighting his enduring influence on this distinctly American film genre. The legacy of Casablanca. In addition to being the apex of Humphrey Bogart's career, Casablanca from 1942 is still regarded as a classic of film history. The film's themes of sacrifice, love, and resistance resonated with a generation dealing with world instability, and Bogart's portrayal of the jaded, yet fundamentally moral nightclub owner, Rick Blaine, connected with audiences during the height of World War II. Bogart and Ingrid Bergman, who portrayed Lisa Lund, had a captivating chemistry that gave a tale of lost love and redemption realism. The classic remark, "Here's looking at you, kid," which was improvised by Bogart himself, is one of the movie's memorable moments. Despite early skepticism regarding the movie's potential, Casablanca became a cultural landmark, winning 3 Academy Awards and being one of the most cherished movies ever made. It cemented Bogart's place as a leading man and established the norm for the reluctant hero archetype, impacting many films and actors. Bogart as a producer. Humphrey Bogart was tired of studio contracts restrictions on him in the late 1940s. He co-founded Santana Productions, one of the first independent production firms run by an actor, since he was determined to escape typecasting and explore more complex jobs. The business was revolutionary since Bogart could personally choose the projects and partners. He produced movies through Santana, such as the gloomy, character-driven drama In a Lonely Place, demonstrating his capacity to take on more nuanced parts. Beat the Devil in 1953, another noteworthy production, shows his readiness to try out unusual storylines. Santana Productions' history is rooted in its ambition. Despite its struggles to attain commercial success, Bogart's risk led to a surge of actor-driven production businesses in the following decades, revolutionizing Hollywood's operations. Even if Santana eventually failed, Bogart's attempt at producing showed that celebrities may have creative agency and is still a monument to his dedication to risk-taking and artistic innovation. A global star. Humphrey Bogart was a worldwide sensation, and his appeal extended beyond American audiences. His enduring charm and realistic depictions of flawed yet heroic individuals made his films wildly popular throughout Europe, Asia, and beyond. Bogart's work affected the French New Wave, especially by directors like Jean-Luc Godard, who loved his on-screen demeanor. Bogart was hailed as a representation of American cool in France, where he was dubbed Le Bogey by French reviewers. His roles in Casablanca and the Maltese Falcon were praised for their timeless appeal in Britain, while his films struck a chord with post-war audiences in Japan as they navigated their moral issues. Given that Hollywood performers were frequently regarded as uniquely American legends, Bogart's global fame was exceptional for his time. However, his rugged appeal to the universal themes of his movies made him transcend cultural boundaries. Bogart's image is still recognizable worldwide decades after his passing, solidifying his place among the most enduring characters in cinema. The African Queen. For Humphrey Bogart, The African Queen from 1951 was a turning point in his career. The picture, which starred Katharine Hepburn opposite him and was directed by his longtime partner, John Huston, was shot in the Ugandan and Congolese jungles under challenging circumstances. Extreme heat and illness were among the difficulties the cast and crew experienced. Bogart is renowned for avoiding illness by consuming only canned food and booze. Despite these challenges, Bogart gave a complex portrayal of Charlie Allnut, a tenacious riverboat captain who sets out on a risky adventure with Hepburn's character, Rose Sayer. Unlike his typical tough guy attitude, the performance demonstrated Bogart's comedic timing and ability to portray tenderness. His breadth and talent were recognized when he won his first and only Academy Award for Best Actor for his performance. In addition to being a critical and financial success, The African Queen demonstrated Bogart's flexibility and solidified his reputation as a cinematic icon by showcasing his capacity to reinvent himself. Bogart's rivalries and friendships. Humphrey Bogart was known as a devoted friend and a bitter opponent in Hollywood due to his razor-sharp humor and unvarnished beliefs. Because of their different personalities, he and Errol Flynn had a rivalry that was the subject of gossip columns. Public arguments resulted from Flynn's exuberant appeal, colliding with Bogart's grounded manner. Bogart's friendships with Spencer Tracy and James Cagney, on the other hand, were based on respect for one another and similar ideals. Cagney appreciated Bogart's fortitude in the face of business obstacles, and Tracy, known for his no-nonsense demeanor, became a confidant. Complexities as a man who was both fiercely devoted and capable of being scathing and confrontational. He was well known on set for giving and frequently assisting other performers in improving their performances. In a field where friendships were short-lived, Bogart's dual nature of friendliness and competitiveness made him an intriguing figure whose long relationships demonstrated his true character. The legacy of To Have and Have Not. More than merely a movie, To Have and Have Not from 1944 marked the start of Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall's illustrious Hollywood affair. Their genuine on-screen chemistry was embodied by Bacall's famous remark, "You know how to whistle, don't you?" With its light-hearted tension, the sequence turned into one of the most iconic scenes in movie history. In addition to their bond, the film demonstrated Bogart's adaptability by showcasing his ability to balance tenderness and hardness. The picture, which was directed by Howard Hawks and included comedy, romance, and action, was partly based on Ernest Hemingway's book. It was Bacall's debut, and Bogart was crucial in enabling her to flourish and laying the groundwork for her remarkable career. Additionally, To Have and Have Not demonstrated Bogart's versatility while retaining his distinctive authenticity. The picture is a pillar of Hollywood's golden period because of its enduring appeal, which stems from both its gripping story and the apparent chemistry between its two actors. The political tensions of the 1950s. Hollywood saw significant upheaval in the 1950s as a result of the Red Scare and McCarthyism. When Humphrey Bogart first joined the Committee for the First Amendment and spoke out against the House Un-American Activities Committee's investigations, he was taking a position against the Hollywood blacklist. Bogart, however, separated himself from the cause as political pressure increased and the blacklist started to have an impact on employment. He then asserted that his engagement was naive and a practical move to safeguard his family and career. Actors had to make tough decisions during this time between upholding their morals and securing their careers. Although some criticized Bogart's withdrawal from activism, it highlighted the difficulties of operating in Hollywood during a contentious political period. Even nevertheless, his early resistance to the blacklist demonstrated his support for free speech, even though the risks were eventually too high for him to carry on with his activity in public. The struggles of aging in Hollywood. Humphrey Bogart had to contend with the difficulties of staying relevant in a field dominated by young people as he grew older. Unlike many of his peers, Bogart developed as an actor by accepting roles, demonstrating his maturity. His skill in portraying characters struggling with moral and psychological issues was shown in movies such as The Caine Mutiny in 1954, which expanded his repertoire. Bogart received praise from critics and was nominated for an Academy Award for his portrayal of Captain Queeg, a neurotic and imperfect naval officer. Instead of sticking to his well-known tough guy attitude, Bogart explored themes of sensitivity and reflection, while delving into the complications of aging. In a field that frequently rejected elderly stars, his adaptability made him stand out. Bogart's final roles proved that he could still command the screen and that his talent and magnetism were ageless. Because of his capacity to adapt, he maintained his status as a recognized and significant figure in Hollywood until the conclusion of his career. The unique bond with Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra and Humphrey Bogart were good friends, which brought humor into Bogart's life. Bogart served as the group's unofficial leader and a member of the original Rat Pack, and Sinatra frequently joined them on their notorious late-night adventures. Their connection was based on respect for one another and a sense of humor, even though Bogart was an established Hollywood celebrity and Sinatra was a budding crooner. Sinatra looked up to Bogart as a mentor, while Bogart valued Sinatra's devotion and ability to lighten the situation. Beyond Hollywood parties, they remained friends. In Bogart's last years, Sinatra provided consolation and support while the actor fought illness. In contrast to his harsh on-screen character, this camaraderie revealed Bogart's softer, more intimate side. Their relationship gave Bogart's public presence a personal touch and solidified his reputation as a complex character on and off screen. The persistent appeal of his movies. Decades after their first release, audiences are still enthralled with Humphrey Bogart's films. Around the world, cinema studies programs teach and regularly screen classics like Casablanca, The Maltese Falcon, and The African Queen. Bogart's ability to depict characters with nuance and realism makes them appealing to various age groups. His performances are praised for their ageless appeal, striking a chord with audiences who respect his distinct fusion of tenderness and hardness. The themes of love, sacrifice, and moral uncertainty ensure his film's continuing relevance. Bogart's impact goes beyond the big screen. His recognizable picture, which frequently includes a trench coat and fedora, has gained cultural significance. His films continue to influence the language of cinema, and contemporary performers and filmmakers regularly point to him as an inspiration. Bogart's timeless appeal is evidence of his unmatched talent and the global appeal of his creations. If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon